Hi, my name is Anushka, and I'm the creator of the UX Frontiers Navigating AI in Design podcast. I created this podcast to use powerful conversations as a way to bridge the gap between technological advances in AI and technological advances in UX. If you're a user experience engineer or a UI designer or a human factors engineer or a user researcher, then you're probably wondering how to translate all the skills you have to future AI tools and AI driven technologies. If you are a software engineer or an AI expert of any kind, you're probably wondering how to use the principles of user experience to improve the experience that your users have with AI driven technologies. And so we're going to try our best to bring relevant people to this podcast to have conversations around how the two fields talk to each other. When I designed this podcast, I laid out the entire design process continuum from gathering user needs to voice of customer activities to planning user studies, executing user studies, analyzing data, and then using that data as inputs to design teams. If you're an early career UX professional and you are tasked with running your first user study, you're probably going through a lot of articles online. You're going back to your textbooks, you are listening to podcasts and watching videos, and you're getting a lot of information from a lot of different sources. I do not claim to be the only source of information for what you're trying to learn, but I hope that this podcast provides a more hands free experience to get the information that you want. I really appreciate you being here with me today. And please feel free to reach out with any comments, suggestions, feedback at uxfrontierpodcast@gmail.com, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you, and I'm excited. Our first guest is a founder based out of LA who will be talking about his startup, ResearchGOAT. ResearchGOAT is a one stop shop to plan and execute a user study. It is an LLM powered platform that will generate discussion guides for you, or you can put one in. It will then go out and recruit participants. It will conduct interviews using an AI speaker, and it will also bring back all the data to you, synthesized, analyzed, so that you can take those insights and apply them immediately to whatever you're working on. Now, this might sound like it's doing the job of a UX researcher or a user researcher, but in my opinion, it's a very powerful co pilot or a colleague that amplifies the speed with which you can go and get insights from potential customers. Ross has a PhD in science and technology with a focus on anthropology from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York, and he also has an MBA from the University of North Carolina. I had a great time chatting with him, and I hope you enjoy the conversation. Hi, Ross.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us today for our very first episode of the UX Frontiers podcast. Firstly, you've had a pretty unconventional but interesting educational journey. Why don't you tell me a little more about what that journey was like and how you got to ResearchGoat?
Sure. I started in academia, so that was the original plan to go off and become a professor, but decided midway through there that I didn't want to do that. And so, yeah, I just got interested in design within the program. So I was TAing in the product design and innovation program within my grad program. And then I moved back to Southern California, got a job at an industrial design firm, and have basically been working in design, research, and innovation since then. Had some corporate roles along the way at Ford Motor Company and AT&T, and T, and then most recently at Accenture. The impetus behind ResearchGoat was just a lot of my learnings along the way and a lot of those roles in both consulting and client side, thinking through kind of what clients need and how to deliver on what clients need, understanding the sort of timelines and budgets that often come with client requests. So, the clients, they want to pay as little as possible and get research back as quickly as possible. But, traditional research takes a long time and to do it well, certainly. So, I was looking for things that I could potentially automate and over the course of the research process from setting up a project, like discussion guides and things like that, to the analysis and analyzing data and pulling out themes and things like that, and then looking at the actual conducting of the research. So started experimenting with doing interviews with the AI, and through a lot of back and forth and trial and error, got it to a point where it made sense where it could, certainly a person will still do a better job, a well-trained moderator will still do a better job, but approximating it well enough where, if you're in a time crunch or you just need the scale of things, it's able to do that very, very easily. So yeah, I built all of that into a standalone product, and that's basically ResearchGOAT.
That's great. There is a gap of time between when you decide your goals for a user study and actually having those participants in front of you and talking to them, and that can be a pretty grimy process. So this is definitely very impressive. What kinds of skills did you have to work on as you were developing ResearchGOAT?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of learning new skills. So, I mean, the idea was to take my knowledge, take my skill set, and be able to, as much as possible, mimic a lot of that with the AI. And so, a lot of translating skills, which I think everybody as they start working with AI, in no matter the use case, is going to have to continue to build those. I had an end goal in mind of what I wanted the AI to do, and 99 times out of 100 it wouldn't do it. And you often see people who post about having used an AI. Oh, it's terrible. It doesn't do what you want it to do. I mean,
Mhm.
that's absolutely true, and most times it doesn't, and that's why it takes a lot of trial and error to actually get it right, which is really important when we're talking about building a product, because it needs to perform consistently. And a lot of the sort of innovation about generative AI is that it doesn't necessarily perform the same every time. I mean, it's literally generating an IA, what it's going to do. So that creativity is part of it, right? And that
Mhm.
creativity is part of doing a user interview where it can, perform things creatively. But that introduces a problem when you're actually building the product, in that you have to kind of anticipate all the things that can go wrong in the interviews and in the analysis. If somebody says this might happen. So you have to sort of feed in into like prompting and training all of the potential things that can go wrong. And, we see more and more things go wrong and have to constantly
Mhm.
update things. So just learning a lot, a lot of those skills on testing things out and trial and error.
Okay. And what are some skills that you think a user researcher should be really learning or trying to learn as fast as possible?
I mean, I think a couple things. I mean, part of it is that those translation skills, or are those translation skills of being able to take what you know and be able to describe it to a machine,
Yeah.
and um, get it to spit out kind of in a format that you want,
Mhm.
over and over again. So being able to know how to work with prompting and formats and things like that. Other things are just knowing how to fit AI into kind of overall workflows and kind of what makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of times where it absolutely doesn't make sense, and just knowing where to plug things in. I mean, some things might end up taking more time than if you just did it yourself. So, yeah, knowing when and where to use AI and
Mhm.
what would be most useful. Yeah, I mean, I think those are the main things.
So I'm hearing, do you think that user researchers would make good prompt engineers?
I mean, I think anybody can, but I think the user researchers should be very good at, we have domain expertise, and the
Mhm.
AI, any sort of generative AI works off of context. And so being able to feed it the context that is going to be very helpful in building something that's unique and useful for whatever use case you
Right.
might.
And if we have someone listening in right now who wants to know, okay, what sort of situations would warrant using an AI and what sort of situations do I not go and use an AI? So, do you have any examples? for someone who might be listening in and is trying to make a decision?
Yeah. In terms of like conducting an interview, like our platform does, I mean, if you have the time and can do it yourself, you should probably do it yourself.
Okay.
Uh, because you will, as a trained moderator, ideally
Mhm.
you be doing a better job
Mhm.
than the AI. But that said, I mean, there's definitely use cases where, the things that are sort of beyond human limitations, like you're one person or maybe you have a small team and there's only so many hours in the day, things like that. I mean, that's when AI really, really comes in handy. So like a lot of the use cases on our platform are like, some of the best use cases are just sort of scaling things up as needed. So yeah, I mean, if you are a team of one, you can only really conduct maybe at most 4 to 6 hours of interviewing a day where the AI could do, essentially unlimited numbers of hours
Yeah.
of this,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, the clients will often ask, right, on a project, is this nationally applicable, internationally applicable? So being able to do that immediate scaling up of things, I think is super important. So, I mean, any of those cases where there's a human limitation, and I think that's a big one, and also just getting things started. I mean, I think
Mhm.
is an important thing. So, again, as the domain expert, the UX expert, you should know more, of how to apply UX and things like that. But AI is very good at, maybe you're just starting a discussion guide and you're thinking about different topics to discuss and having the AI spit out, 50 potential topics for the types of users you're looking to interview. I mean, those are awesome use cases. And then again, it's taking your expertise as in kind of what the product is and knowledge about UX and distilling down, those 50 topics into the 10 most important that
Mhm.
actually really matter.
Nice. So I'm hearing two huge advantages here. The first one is that you're giving startup owners or someone in their bedroom working on a new idea, you're giving them the power of hearing from users, a power they did not have before, or something that would have taken longer. That's the first one, and the second is actually related to something Jacob Nielsen of Norman Nielsen Group said recently. He said AI is really good at generating a lot of ideas, which is something humans can't do. But when it comes to choosing which ideas actually make sense, that's something a human being can do. So it's acting like your idea generator, your cornucopia, and then you're going in and doing all the sorting out.
Definitely.
Yeah. So moving to just something a little more lighthearted, do you have any funny stories or anecdotes from your career that you think researchers might find interesting?
Certainly. I have plenty of interesting stories. Do you want like research stories, things like that?
Anything that just surprised you or shocked you or just made you laugh.
Sure. I mean, well, anytime we do it less and less in terms of actual field work. I mean, so much
Mhm.
research now is just on a Zoom call and things
Yeah.
like that. But certainly going out into the field, which I've done, I've done research on 5 different continents, in person, ethnographic type of research, and you never really know what you're going to get with the person. So, when I used to work at like Ford Motor Company, we were doing things like driving around with real people, right? And that's potentially a dangerous situation. It's a car, and you don't know how these people drive, and you don't know anything about them really, other than their screener information and things like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, I certainly had some interesting ride-alongs and things like that. One guy on working on a Mustang project, he worked at LaGuardia and essentially used LaGuardia Airport as kind of his racetrack. We were speeding around with him in LaGuardia Airport. I thought we were going to get arrested. Other kind of the complete opposite. Another woman who clearly never left her house, but somehow made it past our screener. And so, recruited for a driving study, but clearly did not really drive and never really left her house, was kind of a shut in. And so it was a very slow drive, but a very scary drive because it was kind of just hugging the curb, feeling like we were going to hit everything. Also been on some international research on in places like Nigeria, right? When I worked at Accenture, they wouldn't even let you go face to face without like a armed bodyguard. But when I worked at a small consulting firm, yeah, we went out there, small, just me and one other person, no bodyguard or anything like that. And yeah, we encountered some dangerous situations, like our hotel being under our specific hotel being under bomb threat from the terrorist group. But
Wow.
while we were there, just going out to, and again, we were doing in-home ethnography. So again, just going into kind of random people's
Mhm.
homes. It was for a big electronics company, and they essentially hired the police to protect them. And the police all had AK-47s and things like that. I
Wow.
didn't have any. I had like a 70-pound driver. So
Oh
uh,
my god, you were protecting him.
I mean, maybe. Yeah, we went to some areas that are, probably, and of course I stand out, I'm not Nigerian. It's
Yeah.
pretty obvious. So, I stand out when I'm there. And yeah, so and we went to some places that potentially were dangerous, but I didn't find out until afterwards. So
Oh, wow.
overall it was all fun.
Thanks for sharing those. Those are all interesting. And so now let's really talk about this wonderful product. So how does ResearchGOAT work? Take me through, the sign up to getting results.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my vision is for it to be just a really simple platform, not meant to be some like overly complicated analytics platform. The idea is you go on, you have some questions, and you get them answered, right? And that's really all you have to do. So just go on, you tell us your questions, and then from there, the rest being kind of automated for you.
Does it
Uh,
generate a discussion guide or are you feeding the discussion guide into it?
it can work either way.
Okay.
So, you're telling us, you're essentially like you were explaining to a colleague, telling what this project is about, and here's my research questions. You give us that as the context, and then we can generate a discussion guide, or you can feed one yourself if it's part of a larger project.
Okay. I'm really interested in the results part, results section of your software because, once the user research is done, it's all exciting. You're talking to users, you're preparing, you get on the plane, you get there, and then you're home and you have all this data. And it's
Mhm.
qualitative, it's quantitative, and you have all these stakeholders a day after the user study wanting to know what happened. What did they say? So I'm really interested in the results. What kinds of results is it giving me?
Yeah, so we're really focused on qualitative results as much as possible, as opposed to word counts and things like that, or sentiment analysis, that kind of stuff. That's much more quant focused on large unstructured data sets. So we try and keep it very qual focused. So I mean, essentially, there's two layers. There's the individual sides. We'll analyze each interview and pull out all the key points, and with your research questions, answer those for each participant. So get a full overview of each interview, and what were the key highlights of each interview. And then on the overall side, we answer all of your research questions. So again, if you all you want to know is get your research questions answered, we'll answer those questions for you and give you examples and quotes that answer those questions. But then there's a lot of other things you can pull out on the collective side, pull out pain points and high points and different user groups within the data. You can also analyze it through different lenses. So if it's a design focused project, pulling out design insights. If it's more marketing focused, pulling out like branding and insights more marketing focused. We have a strategy lens as well. So lots of different lenses. So yeah, lots of ways to look at the data. Trying to make it, because every project is unique, every client is unique, and there's lots of ways to look at the data. So yeah, we're just trying to provide as many different ways as possible to look at data, but in a very digestible way. I mean, it's not like you
Mhm.
have to go through all of those things. It's just there if you want. And if at the very basic level, if you just want those your questions answered, you can just stop right there if you want.
Okay. And do you provide a service that's more piecemeal work done by humans at the end? So, say I want a Kano analysis done. And so do you have user researchers or engineers in the background that I can hire to do 5 hours of extra analysis for me? Or is the software flying on its own?
I would say that's up in the air. So we're early stage on everything. So, the business model isn't fully 100% baked, right? So,
Mhm.
I would say the goal is as much as possible to automate. There may be some, consulting hours and things like that built into the business model. Much like, Dscout, if you choose Dscout, like, they have
Mhm.
consulting hours and things like that as part of
Yeah.
their business model. So, we'll see. It's an open question.
And what industries does ResearchGOAT serve today?
I would say it's pretty industry agnostic. I would say it's less about the industry. It's more just, there's certainly some industries that are just, maybe more, data security focused and things like that may be more hesitant to use AI, right? Like banking and health, medical type things, right? So, but it's certainly possible to use it on all those things, but they might just be more hesitant to do so. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty wide open in terms of what it can do. People often ask about industry jargon and things like
Mhm.
that. Oh, can it know about industry jargon? And for the most part, yeah. But we also have a way where you can just kind of fill in extra context into the
Mhm.
discussion guide and things like that. So the AI will know about industry jargon terms and things that the participants might say. So yeah, I mean, it can handle pretty much anything you throw at.
And talking about, jargon and security, have you had requests or do you have plans to fine-tune services to specific clients so that you can, just restrict the model within their environment?
Maybe. It's certainly possible. I mean, just kind of seeing how the use cases evolve and
Mhm.
those sorts of things. So, yeah, we talked to people about like white labeling and things like that. So yeah, I would say that's all potentially on the table.
Another question I had for you here was how long does this whole process take of signing up with you to I know it depends on the number of participants, but say I take 5 to 7 participants. Do you provide a guarantee or some kind of an estimate of 7 days or 10 days?
Yeah, I mean, so the main thing is because we are interviewing real people,
Mhm.
that's the part that will take the longest is the actual, foibles of real people.
Yeah.
So, and so it requires the same sort of incentivizing people to actually do the interviews that any other
Mhm.
sort of research process would require. So in terms of the AI portion, everything is totally automated. So yeah, I mean, the interview length is the interview length. If it's a hour-long interview, it'll take an hour, and the analysis will be done a minute or two after that. So all of that is super
Yeah.
super quick. And also interviews can be done simultaneously, right? So if 10 people all wanted to do it at the same time, they can, right? That's a big bonus in terms of the throughput overall. So the main things are just the recruitment and actually getting participants and yeah, getting them through, getting them onto the platform and things like that, and then incentivizing them to actually do the interview. I would say a typical kind of project workflow would be setting up on Monday, getting everybody recruited and on the platform, and then setting a deadline, like Friday with the participants, and, a lot of them will probably do it Thursday in that
Okay.
case, setting reminders, all of those sorts of things. So yeah, I mean, it's really keeping on top of people and getting them through it. But there's no reason why shouldn't take, it shouldn't take any longer than a week, really, assuming
Yeah.
that people get through the interviews.
Yeah. That's a really quick turnaround.
Mhm.
And I've been going through all these posts on LinkedIn about the AGI robot that's out, and it makes you think if you could build a user and then build variety of users and have it interview these AGIs as, fake users before you go to human beings that I don't know, my mind just goes there. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of those synthetic
Mhm.
user type of platforms that, yeah, interview sort of fake type of users. I mean, I would say the only and those platforms are interesting. We were thinking originally about like infusing more of like a personality into the moderator. And
Mhm.
I'm from Southern California and I was telling it, hey, be a Southern California fan. So it would
Yeah.
say like dude and things like that. So it reverts to a lot of stereotypes,
Mhm.
that you feed into it. So, because it's the most common, right? And what it'll often go to, it's going to go to the statistically most common thing, which is often going to be some kind of stereotype. So that's one of the worries about like synthetic data and things like that, for me at least.
Have you considered building in other features like eye motion tracking or, reading emotions or using Sora to build movies that users can watch? They can watch a prototype in action or they can watch a storyboard.
I think, I mean, all those things you mentioned and more are definitely potentially on the table. I mean, people often ask because we do our video recording the interviews
Mhm,
in on the platform, but the AI isn't technically seeing the
mhm.
participant. So yeah, I mean, people often ask, is it able to kind of read emotions and things like that? So for now, no. I mean, the AI is pretty literal. I mean, a person will say something and it can get some jokes that are like, fairly explicit, but for the most part, it's just going to take what you say literally. So yeah, I mean, being able to up the understanding of emotion and yeah, reading people's faces and things like that. Yeah, that's definitely on the table potentially in terms of like a co-creation type of thing where yeah, a participant says, oh yeah, it'd be great if, you know, the product could do X and then,
Mhm.
having the AI generate something. Yeah, I think that's definitely on the table as well. We do have feedback right now where you can have the AI show an image that you've uploaded, an image or video, and get feedback on it. But yeah, that generation aspect, I think, is definitely something down the line. Because yeah, I mean, a lot of the work that I do is more like co-creation type of work where we're actually generating things from participants and yeah, being able to show that on the fly and ask, okay, is this kind of what you mean?
And would integrating those kinds of features with your platform, would those increase the cost of your platform? Now seeing as how you may have to pay for licenses for certain types of technologies.
I don't know. I mean, the costs of everything are constantly going down. It is. I mean, there's a lot going off with a platform like ours, right? So there's a lot of sort of things at play. I mean, there's like the voice recording, the transcription,
Mhm.
the AI, the what the AI is saying in voice, and so yeah, I mean, all those different things is kind of adding another layer, and there's like
I
cost
see.
involved, but the cost on everything is kind of is going down a lot, every day. I mean, the main cost right now is the AI. So
Right.
yeah, I mean, in theory, all those things would add cost, but at the same time, like all the costs are going down. All those things are in place
Mhm.
would even be lower just because all the costs are going down.
Got it. Okay. And without giving much away, in one sentence, how would you say your LLM is different? Like, what makes it unique?
Yeah, I mean, I think just using my own knowledge, and I mean, I think that I mean anything about LLMs that's going to be unique. I mean, it's the data that they have, right? So just being able to utilize your own data and knowledge, and so training on, what's a good follow up question, what does a good persona look like, those sorts of
Yeah.
things. That's I mean that's probably the unique aspect of over any and a LLM platform.
Right. And are there plans or maybe you already have this feature of being able to conduct interviews in different languages?
Yeah, we have that in place now. So most any major language that you probably want to use is going to be on there. Major Asian languages, yeah, even some fairly more minor languages are all in there. So yeah, I mean the interview takes place in that language, and then on the user side, we just translate quotes and things like that. So on the user side, yeah, everything's in English, but so we just translate quotes and stuff for you.
That's extremely impressive. So how do you think ResearchGOAT is going to change the field of UX, given that you have such a unique LLM and such a unique product?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that it's gonna really change UX. I mean, hopefully it's just, slotting into existing workflows. I mean, one thing that I think so that there's often, either with clients to, okay, let's just not bother doing research. We don't have the time, we don't have the money, so it can, or there's just a push, okay, let's just do some like quick quantitative survey monkey type thing. So I think there could be more to actually do qualitative research, kind of the opposite of some people's fears of AI replacing qualitative research. I think it could actually increase the amount because a lot of research now goes to quant research where when it probably shouldn't. It's like quant research that quant research should be for like verifying hypotheses, sizing things, how big is a market, that sort of thing. Not really like exploratory research should be qualitative and should also like feedback on things for like,
Mhm.
you know, getting feedback on a prototype. Yeah. I mean, a lot of that's done in a quant way, but I mean, the good data is the qualitative, like the why behind the feedback. So being able to
Right.
move a lot of that back to qualitative, I think is super valuable. So yeah, I mean, I think it could be a very positive impact for
I think it's
UX.
really going to help UX professionals advocate for user research within their organizations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, it just can give you much more authority in terms of,
Mhm.
a lot of clients, they want big numbers and things like that. So being able to have an easy way to access big numbers, but still having it qualitative research.
Do you have any competitors today?
Yeah, there are some others, doing some similar things with LLMs, and certainly a lot of the companies that have been around a long time, like Qualtrics and things like
Mhm.
that, are everybody's exploring. The whole research field is really undergoing a bit of a crisis in terms of what's next with everything AI going on. So yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting field with a lot of
Yeah.
change going on.
Everything's in Brownian motion right now is what it looks like from the outside.
Definitely.
If can someone, if they wanna contact you or use ResearchGOAT, how can someone contact you? How can they find you?
Yeah, so I mean, just feel free to check out our website.com, and then I mean, it's free to try, so very easy to give it a shot and see what you think. And yeah, no real risk or obligation, and it's all pay per use, right? So you don't have to worry about signing up for a year, and we're never going to use it, but it's just whenever you need to use it, it's there. So again, fits very easily into any workflow.
Okay. All right. And if I'm a company working on a product, first I'm exploring if there's an opportunity and then I'm developing and then I'm actually commercializing the product. Which one of these 3 buckets do you think ResearchGOAT would fit the best in? Is it at the opportunity stage? Is it when they're developing the prototype or just before commercialization?
I mean, I think the first two are best. I mean, so exploratory interviews is, definitely can do that. Any kind of exploratory interview, and then on the when you're actually building things, again, we can show photos, video, so any kind of like prototype, that sort of thing, to get feedback along the way. Very easy to do that. And yeah, I mean, very easy to do it with, like we've talked about, any different language. So if it's a global product, getting feedback from locales that would have been very difficult before. So yeah, I think fits very well into the first two.
Right. All right. Well, this has been a really fun conversation, Ross. I know that UX researchers listening in are going to get a lot from this, whether they're students or early career professionals or even mid career professionals. So, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you want to share?
No, I think we pretty much covered it. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an interesting time in UX and UX research. There's been some difficulties with layoffs and like a lot of tech companies and things like that. But there's also, I think, a lot of opportunity in kind of what's next. So yeah, and a lot of it probably will have to do with AI. So just kind of have to see what comes next.
Great. Thank you.